Welcome back to Wanderlusting Lawyer. Today I want to talk to you guys about how to time your Camino de Santiago based on weather and other factors. Again, I only have walked the Camino Francés, and I walked from late June to late July, so that's really my personal frame of reference. However, I've been a part of several Facebook groups and have kind of watch other people's journeys through the various seasons on the Camino. So hopefully my goal here today is just to give you some things to think about when you're considering when to do your Camino. So I guess first and foremost, it's pretty obvious, but the best time to do your Camino is whenever you have the availability, when you can take the time off and not be stressed about maybe missing work or being away from your family. And if you're able to, taking about 5 to 6 weeks, ideally, if you want to do the full Camino Francés from France, from Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port to Santiago de Compostela, and perhaps even beyond to the end of the earth, as they call it. So yes, your availability is obviously number one. Two, I would say I would consider whether you want to be in Santiago for a special event, such as Semana Santa, the Holy Week leading up to Easter, for Easter Sunday, or for the Feast of St. James, which is July 25th. That's actually, I arrived in Santiago July 24th. When I was originally planning my Camino, I did not know that the 25th was the Feast of St. James, or the Day of St. James. But when I found that out, I knew I really wanted to kind of structure my Camino to arrive in Santiago on the 24th of July if possible. There's a big fireworks show, there's light shows, there are people everywhere. It's a really fun way to celebrate the end of your Camino. But at the same time, I will say that after 5 weeks on the Camino without seeing too many people, it was a little bit of a shock to the system. So while I do recommend finishing at that time, I probably wouldn't do it again. Next, I would think about what kind of gear you want to bring, or I guess more how much gear you want to bring, and relatedly, whether you're most bothered by the cold, by the rain, or by the heat. When I left June 20th and I arrived July 24th. And I think I got pretty lucky. I was expecting it to be quite hot, especially in the Meseta, given that it was the summer months. But actually, I think the hottest days we had were in the first week or two, so maybe in mid 80s Fahrenheit. During that first week, and then it really cooled down. We had an unseasonably cool July on the Meseta, and then almost always it's going to be cooler when you get into Galicia. But just a word on that. So even though I was doing a summer Camino and I had just like a lighter sleeping sheet, I still had a fleece, zip-up fleece. I still had a pair of long pants. I still had a really thin rain jacket, and a long sleeve shirt. Everything was necessary because even in the dead of summer in Spain, sometimes the sun does not come up until 8 or 9 a.m. and it is quite chilly until that happens. So, and at night too, it can also get really chilly. So you still are gonna need layers, but it's more a question of, all right, do I want waterproof shoes? Do I want to have to bring maybe rain pants or snow pants or gloves or this or that? So it's really a function of the kind of weather you work best in. And relatedly, I would say another thing to think about when timing your Camino is whether you are or would like to be an early riser on the Camino, or whether you'd more like to just take your time in the morning, meander through the towns you come across, and roll into your place you're gonna stay maybe 4, 5, 6 in the afternoon. If you are a later riser, I would say that summer is going to be a little tougher because unless you are lucky like I was and don't have a typical Spanish heat wave, a lot of times you're going to want to get up at 5:36 to get started to try to get in a good couple hours before the heat of the day really picks up. On the flip side, if you are lucky and it's not too hot, The summer, it's a beautiful time in that the sunset, I think, is at 9:30 or 10. So you can walk, you can get somewhere at 6, even 7, and still have several hours of daylight to go exploring, to discover the squares that are great in every town for meeting people and for people watching. So I would say to keep both considerations in mind. But if the heat doesn't bother you and you want to walk slowly, take your time, I'd say summer is an awesome time to go. Another consideration might be what type of vegetation you're hoping to see. When I walked, it was kind of just the tail end of the spring wildflower season. So we saw there was a lot of live grass, the beautiful red poppies, flowers of all colors, really, actually. But in the sunflowers, I did see a few sunflowers, but it wasn't quite late enough in the season for them to be really opening. But I'd say for me, I think I prefer the summertime because in the spring, you obviously it's gorgeous, lush, green flowers, but you might be dealing with a lot more rain. And if you wait until something more like September, October, then it's probably a lot of brown land after the summer heat. So you won't, for me, that would have been a little bit of a repetitive view. I really like to see the flowers. So anyway, that's something to keep in mind as well. Also, you should think about, and I've discussed this in my video, should I book ahead on the Camino de Santiago? You should think about whether you're somebody that wants a reservation-free Camino. And I say that instead of phrasing it in terms of whether you want a crowded or less crowded Camino, because honestly, no matter when you walk the Camino, unless maybe the winter months or, really the tail end of October into November through probably March, there are going to be areas that are crowded and there are going to be areas that are not crowded. There are always little variants, not always. There are sometimes little variants you can take to provide less of a crowd on the Camino. For example, late July when I was in Galicia, and there were areas where there were tons of pilgrims because of tour buses and just a lot of people starting their Camino in Sarria. There was a variant I took that was maybe 2 hours. I didn't see another pilgrim on it. So there are chances for solitude, but as a long little diatribe there. So you should think about whether you want to make reservations or not, because I would say that if you're going to be traveling in a larger group, or if you are a later riser, or if you are in some of these busy times, Easter, September, you're probably going to need to make reservations at least the day of. So if for you, the authentic Camino experience is not making any reservations, it may be, if you're traveling alone, you can do probably a summer Camino like I did before August. Or you may want to consider some of the shouldery seasons, such as March, or I think June is a great month, or later in October. So those are my thoughts on timing for the Camino de Santiago. You want to think about weather, you want to think about what you want to see, how you want your Camino to go. So let me know if you guys have any other thoughts, if there was anything I forgot, and thanks again for watching.